Okay, setting up the air awning that goes onto the side of the van. You've got the air pump to blow the actual tent up, which is in the big bag. You've then got a ground sheet which goes underneath everything, and then you've got the drive away awning, which we'll go through how to connect that up in a bit. Now once the tent's unpacked, you need to get it into the direction, so you will find on one of the edges is this bead. This is what you need to connect to the actual van, so this side needs to be closest to the van, and we're going to connect this first. And then we connect it to the van using the drive away kit. And this comes in 4 parts. So initially you have the material part, and that slides into the van. You then have these strips which connect onto the other side of this and then connect onto the tent. We'll run through that now. Along the passenger side of the van you have this awning rail, and you'll see that it has a groove within it at the bottom. So you simply slide this in and push that all the way down to the very end of the actual pole, like that. Next task is to connect the tent onto the plastic tubing. Now you'll see on the tent there's actually 2 different sizes you connect to. There's a 4mm and a 6mm, which is the thicker one. We'll be using the 6mm one, and with the 6mm one all you do is basically slide that into the actual plastic rail like that, and then push that down so it threads along. Once you've got it pushed on, only about 10 to 15 centimeters, we're then going to actually thread it onto that strip that we put onto the van before. So that just goes into there like that, and then we push that along, and then once that's on we just actually thread this all the way down, and then once it's there we're going to pull the tent back. So the 3 poles in total. So what I find easiest is after you've done the first one, so you can see the first one's there, I've threaded it all the way as far as it will go onto the tent. You then come and thread the front one onto the actual tent there, and again just do the same process, pushing it all down and then pulling the tent back so the tent threads through here. Then with the 3rd and final plastic pole, again connect that to the tent, only about 10 to 15 centimeters. What you'll see is that the first pole is all the way at the end. The first pole that we actually put in is now pushed all the way to the front pole. So all we're going to do now is connect this one up to here in the same way we did with the first ones. And now, as you'll see there, the air awning is completely connected all the way along to the van. Positioning wise, just before you start to blow it up, you can move it around a little bit once it's blown up, but have a think about where the door is, because you want to open that, and where the actual awning is. So just move it along until it gets to a point where you can actually still open the door in and out with the awning on. So roughly about there would work. To then inflate the tent, there's a few places that you need to blow up. So with your air pump, on the corners you'll find areas like this. So if you lift that up, you will see the valve inside, and the way it works is it pushes in and then twists. So it goes into the hole there and then twist it, and then that's locked in, and then quite simply just start pumping. But one of the main gotchas here is make sure it's on inflate. Make sure the hose is connected to the inflate, otherwise it isn't going to work. One thing to be aware of, if you unattach the air pump and all the air comes out of the pole that you've just blown up, then what you need to do is inside where you can see the little white in the middle, if you just push that down and it will pop up. So it has to be popped up in order for the air to stay in, otherwise all the air will just rush out as soon as you disconnect the air pump. So what we want to do is peg in the actual sides of the tent that are next to the van, and to do that we're going to use these glow pegs. Reason for that is they glow in the dark, so when you come back to your van, if you drive away and want to come back and park in, you'll easily see these ones. So just go through the hook there and then just push that in roughly behind the wheel. Just start off behind the wheel and don't push it in too much, because we're probably going to have to move this at some point, and do the same then on the front. Say we get on the front, we're just going to use the bungee that's on the front, and we're just going to tie that round there and peg it in just under the vehicle. So once we've got some air in the three main poles, the front, the middle and the back, we don't need to overinflate them in any way. We can blow them up a little bit later. So at that point, what we're going to then do is stand the tent up, and you'll see that's the canopy there that comes from the van to the back there, and then all we're going to do is peg out each point. So you'll see there where the actual clip is. So this clip here is what we're going to put the peg through. Quite simply, so it's just like that. And then we're going to go round and do that on all of the points that have these clips for the pegs to go into. Okay, so at this point all we've done is just pegged in all the corners, basically where the feet of the actual air poles are. We've just put a peg in each one of them, and it's pretty much standing up on its own. As I'm doing this by myself, the only thing I've done is put a guide rope in on the back just to help me hold it up a little bit. But the next step on the back is to pull out the back and peg that in so that it actually stretches it out. Once the back's pegged out, it's now a good time to actually go inside the tent and just basically push out the air poles. So you can see that one's not quite sitting in where it should. So what we're going to do is just move that one back a little bit, and then we're just going to make sure all the poles are pushed all the way back so the tent's in a secure position. So once you've got all the guidelines pegged in, and for the guidelines remember to use the glow pegs so you can see them in the dark. It might be at this point, and this is just a might, that you may need to blow some of the legs up a little bit more. So the example here is, if I come around here, you'll see that this leg isn't quite sitting right. Now that's to do with some of the guidelines being too tight, but also potentially not enough air in there. So I'm just going to put a little bit more air in that leg. And now everything's pegged in, your guidelines are up. All we're going to do is come back to the front, and all I've done is put a luminous peg. I've moved it from, if you remember I had it on the bungee, I've moved it into the bracket, and that just allows me then a bit of flexibility to move that where I want. So then we can put it in there, and we know we can still get in and out of the van like that. You are never going to get a complete flush to the van. There will always be, just because different tents, different shapes of vans, they're not made for a particular van, so you're always going to get a gap there, but ultimately the goal is to get as close as you can.